Welcome to Martini Time. Beautiful, hot day here in Blackstone, the center of the world, but then you too are the center of the world. So let's be awake, aware, and welcome this talk as a guide to your essential ground of inner peace. That's what we want. So I just found this, I had this little bottle tucked away. It's Bombay gin. It reads backwards, but let me have a taste of that. It's very expensive gin, and I had this, I don't know, in the back of my closet somewhere. Now that's very good. I've been drinking the cheaper stuff, and this is very good. So I wanted to talk today about the Cartesian Split. Now I'll wager a martini that nobody listening to this knows what the Cartesian Split is. It's not what you get in a fountain, a drugstore fountain. It's not ice cream. The Cartesian Split was what's called René Descartes, a French philosopher, who after the Enlightenment, along with Isaac Newton, framed reality so the scientific method worked. After the Middle Ages, the scientific method was adopted as the way to discover truth, because truth was defined differently with the Cartesian Split. And so René Descartes, you see, in the Middle Ages, everything was all one. Science and religion, philosophy, mechanics, everything. It was all one system. So the science was called alchemy. And alchemy was the science of the Middle Ages. But there was no way to differentiate between the scientist's personal opinion and the scientific results. So it couldn't be duplicated. See, it couldn't be repeated because it was like poetry. It was metaphorical. The scientist was seeking God, the elixir of life, through chemicals and through scientific experiments. So the subjective and the objective was all mixed up as one. They couldn't be separated. So Descartes separated them. He said science is in the realm of material, and religion is in the realm of the mind. So he split religion from science. So scientific truth was proven by experimentation that is measurable, and if you can measure it, then you can write a formula and somebody else can try it out and it'll work. It's like a recipe with food. It wasn't the opinion of the cook. It was magic ingredients. You could duplicate it. And so the church they got the mind and the science got the body. And right there is the Cartesian split between the mind and the body. So over time, the scientific method became so successful. It made machines. It made the Industrial Revolution. All the comforts, everything we have now, you see. That religion, God just got bypassed. Well, in other words, if you wanted to get it to cool the air, you didn't pray for God to cool the air. You made an air conditioner. See, before that, if you wanted to get cool air, you would have to do a ritual for cool air to get God to give you cool air. Just bypass God. You can still have God, but if you don't need it, you can invent a machine. Now it's a robot or a computer, you see. So God became kind of like dysfunctional. You're fine to keep it around like a teddy bear. Keep him around, but you really don't, if you want to fix stuff, you really don't need God. You don't get a medicine man, you go to a doctor. That's just assumed now. But that's the Cartesian split. So what am I getting at? Anyway, I need a drink. So that's good. I'll have to start. Oh boy, I wish I could afford that Bombay gin. So I was just watching Murdoch. Have any of you ever watched Murdoch? It's on Netflix. Murdoch Mysteries. Very popular in Canada. They ran for, I don't know, still going, 10, 12 years. But anyway, it takes place around the turn of the century, the last century, and in Canada. And there's murders and mysteries, but they're always coming up with situations that happened then that became later on in our history big to-dos. Like they were seeing every show has kind of like the birth of something that was happening in the modern age. That was just beginning then. It was wow, what if so-and-so happened, you see? So anyway, prohibition was the topic. And there was a temperance movement. So I was just talking to my wife, this temperance, we think, that was so far back. But I live here in Blackstone, and people that live in Virginia, in the South, that have any age on them, remember temperance. Remember what it was like to live in a theocracy where you had religious moral rules dividing your secular society in a partition, in a Cartesian split, you see. So I remember in Virginia back in the late 50s when I was in the Navy in Norfolk, Virginia, and you would go to the market, and on Sunday there would be the blue laws. And there would be sheets over products that you could not buy on Sunday. And you certainly couldn't buy any liquor or beer. So there were the blue laws. And they were devised by the clerics, basically, to inhibit or resist the encroachment of secular world into the religious world. The last holdout, you see, in the Descartes Cartesian split. Well, this is for religion, and so this is for morality. This protects morality. So you can't buy things on Sunday because you're supposed to pray on Sunday, go to church. And of course, we all remember Prohibition, which was a moral movement, a moralism, evil. That's what this little mystery was about. The Temperance, which were mostly women, were running around, had the evils of alcohol. And then it was just, this was about, if we remove alcohol from, prevent alcohol from in this town, well then the bar in the next town would become very successful. And in fact, that's why a murder was committed. Because this bartender killed the guy who was councilman who would not vote for temperance, killed him, so he bought property in the next town, so he would have a bar there and everybody would go there for liquor. But that was right here in Blackstone. I mean, Blackstone was with this small town Virginia was a moral place. And so when Prohibition ended, different counties were wet and some were dry. Blackstone was dry. But so you could go to Cambridge or Crewe to get your liquor. And the liquor stores, instead of being private, were state-owned, ABC stores. So if you were wet, you could have an ABC store in your town, and the people from the other town would come to your store and buy the liquor, and they liked it that way because nobody would know they were buying the liquor. Out of town, nobody knows what I'm doing. And I remember I was working at the Courier Record, and that's when cable came to Blackstone, cable TV. And the town council said, okay, we'll grant you to the cable, we'll grant you access, but you can't have MTV. That's immoral. So they let the cable company, but they couldn't have MTV because that would corrupt the youth. And then when the ABC store finally did come here, because it was realized that it was kind of silly to have to go all the way to Crewe or Cambridge to get your liquor, there were protests, and ministers marched, temperance movements, just like back in Prohibition. So this whole idea of, and now look at it everywhere now, and then of course the blue laws finally went, and used to be you couldn't buy, well in Blackstone you could buy beer but you couldn't buy liquor, you know, and so, but then that went away. Gradually it relaxed, and the blue laws are gone. And now there's ABC stores in every town, and you can buy it on Sunday. They're open till 7 o'clock on Sunday night, you know. And it's just it's just gone. You see, what was it all about? What did it all mean, Alfie? Remember that movie? What's it all about? What was that? People running around with flags and banners and keeping the devil out, and now the devil's in, and well, you know, I like my martini, so. Well, one thing in the movie, in the mystery tonight, that caught my attention was it's kind of a comic mystery. But anyway, the chief of police, who drinks, you know, he says, you can't get between a man and his liquor. You know, you can't get between a man and his liquor. Now, what's the prohibition going on today? Well, we're not fighting for liquor or prohibition of liquor. So now it's moved not from taking men's liquor away, but taking women's body away. That's the prohibition going on now. So now you got the prohibition movements going of abortion and holding back the secularization of this of the last stand of morality, which is the reproductive rights of women. So contraception, keep that away. Abortion, keep it away. Or prohibition. It's the same as the temperance. But what's the thing today is you can't get between a woman and her body. You can't get between a woman and her body. If you do, it's not going to work. That's a Cartesian split. The mind and the body is being split away. So you say, well, I think it's bad, but I want it. You see, that's the split. I shouldn't drink, but I want to have a drink. And the taboo of drinking makes me want it more. So the more evil you pile on something, the more it becomes tempting, and the more people go somewhere else to get it. So you don't stop it, you just shift it around. You're never going to stop abortion, you're just going to shift it around. You see, because it's the Cartesian split. You're separating the whole into two incompatible, conflicting parts, the mind and the body. Our whole society is based on this Cartesian split, and it's gradually the postmodern age is slowly trying to extricate itself from the Cartesian split that has been going on for 500 years since the Middle Ages. And it's in everything. It's the gin in everything, so to speak. See? So, you see, the Cartesian split is like gin and vermouth. Once you put them together, you can't separate it. So, Cartesian split has been the foundation, the paradigm that makes our modern society work. Advertising is based on the Cartesian split. I feel something's lacking in me. I think something's missing. And so then there's an ad. Wow, Coca-Cola, that's the real thing. If you drink that, you'll be whole. Ooh. Coca-Cola then becomes like the Holy Grail. Coca-Cola then is presented as the real thing. That will make you feel real, which means whole, which will heal the Cartesian split between your body and your mind. This civil war between the body and my mind. My mind and my body are at war. I want this, but I shouldn't have it. I should be that. I should be good, but I feel bad. See? Feeling and thinking are divided by the Cartesian split. So we're everywhere there's healing going on. Everywhere there's this trying to heal this. Even in our politics. is infected by the Cartesian split. I'm starting to get over, but just an example. So this Alexander Cortez, all the big rage now because she defeated incumbent Democrat, which you might call a machine. He's a party man. Not to say that's bad. I'm just saying that he was expected to win because he's been there for 20 years. And he was a man. He was powerful. Had his party all lined up. Everything was set. The thing worked. He didn't have to do much. Didn't even show up for a debate. It was assumed he would win, you see. But the politician who is a Cartesian split, that means he just doesn't seem to be authentic, is losing today. People want authenticity. People want people who speak with one voice instead of two, you see. Instead of a forked tongue. That's in the Bible, that's called hypocrisy. Like in the mystery today, there was a guy who was he was in temperance marches, fighting for temperance, but he was still drinking. So that, but anyway, I'm just trying to flesh out this idea of the Cartesian split. So I hope you remember that, because if you feel split, if you feel in conflict with yourself, I feel I should do this, but I should do that. I want to do this, I should do that. That creates a feedback loop. And if you can't get a way out of it, it's going to create a panic attack, or it's going to create a need for therapy, or suicide, or schizophrenia is a product of the Cartesian split. I was just reading about that in R.D. Lang, a psychologist who saw the larger. I'm digressing, so I won't go there. Anyway, thanks for dropping in. I'll see you tomorrow.